owns your voice? Are big companies learning from Ursula? What defines identity theft? Let's talk about it. Hey friends! Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Carrie Fable. I also go by Cypress online. I am an entertainer and a voice actor, so if you are at all entertained by this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. So I will just go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. I have been incredibly busy, and I really wanted to do a really strong deep dive into this topic. But because of the time constraints, I really haven't had a chance to do that. And I've seen so many wonderful, powerful articles come by, and I keep saving them as part of my project. And so I decided, you know what, now is better than never, right? Done is better than perfect, as they say, right? So instead, I am going to give full credits to these authors, but I'm going to read 5 articles in full and then kind of discuss and go over them so that it is still fair use. I just feel like these writers definitely express the feelings and thoughts that I have probably better and more eloquently, although I will admit I have actually said a lot of what's in these articles in my own on the past episodes and stuff. I should probably make a playlist for all of the times I talk about AI, honestly. But anyway, so it's just nice to hear from, other very successful voice actors and people within the industry. And it's really important that we discuss this, that we spread the awareness, because it is actually affecting people. So I just want to lightly touch. I will definitely make a larger and longer video on this, but this has personally affected my own voiceover business. As you know, I went full-time in February of 2022, and I've lost clients because of the AI clause. I've had to reject a contract with a client that I've worked with for 3 years. It was almost 4 years. And I've had to deny new clients because of contracts. And it's very disheartening because, as you will hear in one of these articles, taking smaller gigs is kind of how you work your way up. You need to network, you need to spread a good reputation for yourself. And to lose these smaller opportunities is really detrimental to a new voiceover artist's career. And although I'm not new, it'll be my 10-year anniversary, November 2023, I'm still not where I want to be with it. So much so that I have actually decided to pivot, again, as you'll see in one of these articles mentioned, and I am diversifying my employment. And so I'm actually studying right now to take the project management professional certification. I actually have about an hour and a half left of contact hours that I am needed, and then I am just going to study and take the exam. So I haven't scheduled the exam yet, but that will be coming up. I'll probably schedule it next week or so. And so I am excited, but of course that has taken a lot of my time. So, but that's very relevant. Why do I have to basically go back to a day job? Because I can't get full-time work as a voice actor anymore. It was looking really promising and really hopeful, and now it's just getting harder. And voice acting will always be a passion of mine, so I will always do it as a side hustle, and I wish to grow it and really maintain it and really focus on character work and voice acting and video games. But I need to remove the stress of where is the paycheck coming from? Can I afford mortgage, health issues, all that sort of stuff gets very expensive. And when you're not booking regular work, it can be very stressful. And so I just realized I needed to make that move, that business directive for my career. And so because this affects me so much, and obviously, no, AI work is not 100% why I've lost work or, whatever. It's a very competitive field. It's just getting harder. And I think that's where it needs to kind of focus on, is that AI is not going to help the creatives in the end. It is only going to help the management of streamlining processes. And if you see it as technical, you'll really understand where the issue lies. So let's go ahead and start with these articles. This is going to be a very long video, so I want to keep it concise where I can. AI is already taking jobs from some voice actors. June 1st, 2023, Megan McCarthy-Carino and Rosie Hughes. Powerful new artificial intelligence tools have a lot of people worried about being replaced. Remy Michelle Clark, a voiceover artist in Dublin, Ireland, says she's already seeing it. A few years ago, Michelle Clark did some voiceover work for Microsoft, recording thousands of sentences for its text-to-speech software. Since then, her voice has been licensed to third-party companies, including one called Revoicer, an AI company selling text-to-speech voices. Michelle Clark only realized her voice had been distributed when she came across Revoicer's website and heard a sample of the company's voice called Olivia. The Olivia voice speaks in a gentle, hushed tone and has a soft Irish accent, just like hers. Marketplace's Megan McCarthy-Carino spoke with Michelle Clark about the growing threat this technology poses to her business and the experience of hearing her own voice doing gigs she didn't book. The following is an edited transcript of their conversation. Remy states, "A voiceover artist basically puts voice to anything that you can think of. You might hear a voiceover artist selling you something on Spotify, or you could be learning from a voiceover artist when you're learning modules about medicine. You might be watching documentaries and hearing a voiceover talk to you about thresher sharks. There's no limit to what a voiceover artist can do." Hearing the voice called Olivia from Revoicer is uncanny. It's a surreal thing to listen to it, because I know that's me as soon as I hear it. I visualize the hours I spent in the studio, and I can hear those hours of work in that. And now here's this company called Revoicer, who I've never heard of, profiting off hours of my work while I've been completely left out of the equation. Megan asks, "The Olivia voice does sound like you, but it also sounds pretty obviously fake. Do you think that this voice could really compete with you?" Michelle answers, "I don't feel it can compete with me as a voiceover artist. However, there are so many different tiers of work within the voiceover industry. Some of those are much smaller, internalized jobs for corporations or social media ads. A lot of voiceover artists would probably call those smaller jobs their bread and butter. These jobs are often created by smaller companies or smaller brands, and sometimes they don't want to pay the voiceover premium. I have actually come across quite a number of these ads. I've even found a couple of tech products that use my voice. These are people who have opted for AI over maybe looking for the real voiceover artist behind it. So while I don't think the AI is competing with me as a voiceover artist, I have seen how it is affecting my business in that kind of tier of work. It's definitely affecting my business in that way." Do you think this technology will have a lasting impact on your industry and your career? With the way it's progressing at the moment, yes. I think if changes happen, maybe some of the damage can be mitigated. But currently, I do see a change in the industry. I see that shift, and other voiceover artists have seen it as well. Right now, for me, the prospect isn't great. I'm already looking at other things to do, thinking of moving in different directions. I'm trying to embrace that dreaded word, the pivot, because I feel like it's necessary now. I see trouble ahead. We talk about the legal system as a slow-moving beast, but AI is a rapidly moving entity, and we're just going to have to be faster. We're just going to have to catch up to all the developments that are happening. There are real human consequences to this version of progress that we're seeing. Carino states, "We talk a lot on the show about how technology like this could affect people's livelihoods, and there's always this rejoinder among tech optimists that it will create more jobs than it destroys. How does that ring to you from where you're sitting?" Michelle responds, "Yes, maybe there will be new jobs, but there will be jobs in one area, and that will be the area of tech. Not everybody wants to work in tech, and not everybody has the skills to work in tech. Why should tech be the only industry in the future? We shouldn't have to lose so much just to gain some progress. Philosophically, what does it mean for technology to take over this kind of job? Which is more than just a job for you, right? Humans create art that creates values, that builds societies, that creates culture, that references how we live, and that influences the culture that we shape and that we build. If AI, which is based on all of human creation of the past, takes over, then everything that will be created will be of the past. For me, art is something that is very intangible because it has an element of spirit, because it has the heart element, that kind of emotional element, two people could grow up side by side on the same street and both could become writers. And they could write completely different types of work because of their unique identity, expression, soul, and self. An AI product just can't create in that way. It can't draw on all of these personal experiences, like how the sun landed on a flower at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. These are things that are being lost. There's a strange surrealism that's coming with AI production. It's that emotionless vision of the future that worries me. Because if art creates and shapes society, and all of human-created art is taken over by AI, then a future society is possibly one without soul, without magic, without the inspiration of that aha moment, that epiphany, without an emotional connection. What sort of future are we walking into? Remy Michelle Clark is certainly not the only voiceover artist running into AI doppelgangers online. In 2021, a Canadian voice actor named Bev Standing sued TikTok, saying the social media platform used her voice without her permission for its viral text-to-speech feature. If you were on the app then, you probably heard Standing's voice narrating the inner thoughts of a dog or something similar. The voice on TikTok was simultaneously monotone yet peppy, and often mispronounced words in comical ways. Later, in 2021, TikTok agreed to settle the suit with Standing, though the details of the settlement were not made public. Since then, TikTok has replaced the old voice with an even peppier voice named Jessie, and the new artist behind the voice, Kat Callahan, seems to be in on the job. At least, that's according to a video she posted on TikTok, of course.
She's back. Hang in there for those who think I'm lying. I've got something for you coming up. Number one, just to answer a few frequently asked questions. My initial TikTok video where I told you I was the text-to-speech girl, yeah, I was referring to my listeners that had been asking. I am a radio girl in Canada and I have radio shows here. I do voiceover work and I have a podcast. So that's what that was about. Number two, no, I'm not lying. And doing what I do for a living, to lie about something like this would be pretty silly. Number three, this is what you've been asking for the most. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Yes, I'm the TikTok text-to-speech girl. My name is Kat. I work with TikTok on TTS and other projects. I love working with TikToks. I love seeing your TikToks. Sometimes you guys make me say some pretty horrendous things. It's pretty messed up. But I kind of think it's funny. I don't mind it at all. You're probably sick of my voice. I'm sick of my voice. I don't know if that'll work, but there you go.
We asked Microsoft about Michelle Clark's experience finding out her voice had been licensed to third-party companies after completing voiceover work for it. A spokesperson for Microsoft sent this response. As part of our commitment to using AI responsibly, we inform voice talent about the use of their audio recordings to create synthetic voices, and we obtain their legal consent for this use. We also set standards and provide resources to help our customers use these technologies responsibly in their applications. So I know I've definitely spoken about Bev Standing. I am an associate with her. You know, if you ask her about me, she doesn't know what I am, but I'm linked to her on social media. So I kind of saw the background on that. So I saw how that was affecting her on a personal level as well as obviously a professional level. And it's wonderful to put a name to a voice with Michelle Clark, because I have always wondered every time that you hear, multiple, AI voices, like either on my GPS, like I have Siri, as an Australian man, I don't know who the voice is. And I wonder, I have never thought to Google it. I'll do that right now. Editor Carrie will Google it and let's see, could I find the answer? Are they even giving credit to these people? I always assumed that there was a healthy contract that, actually financially supported these talent. But it's very clear that at least not in all cases, in some cases, it really is stolen. And then how do you fight that? Litigation is so expensive. It's just really disheartening to hear that this is happening. It's not, an old wives' tale of, don't eat before you go swimming, that kind of stuff. Like it's based in fact, but it doesn't really, it's more like the cramping and stuff like that. It's not actually, you're not going to drown just because you jump in after eating a sandwich, right? But like this, it's not just that. It's not like, technically, hypothetically speaking, AI voices could do this voice. No, this is actually happening. Like people are taking these samples and using them in places instead of paying the people people who own the voice. And that's where it's really scary to me. But we'll talk about that more in depth later. So I did just want to say, I know it's really ironic that I'm reading all these articles with interviews. Some of them are just written interviews. This one specifically does have a podcast episode, so I highly encourage you go and listen so that Michelle actually can use her voice to say these words. But I didn't want to obviously take a clip from that because I feel bad enough reading these articles. But in my defense, very lame defense, I am trying to give credit. And it's just another format to spread the news. As I said, all of these links are in the description down below, and I am putting screenshots as I read them. So hopefully people realize that I am not trying to take anyone's credit. It's just another way to read this article, or all of these articles, really. But yeah, I really want to see some proof from Microsoft, to be honest. Can I say that? Can I just be brutally honest? When McCarty Carino from Marketplace reached out to Microsoft and they said that the claim, basically, they're saying that Michelle lied, straight up. They're saying, hey, our commitment is to explain this fully, yada, yada. But, okay, fine, maybe in very specific, like this is where the gray area is, right? Because Microsoft didn't use Michelle's voice without her permission. A few years ago, Michelle Clark did some voiceover work for Microsoft. Since then, her voice has been licensed to third-party companies. They sold her voice, or it got leaked, if you want to, not claim that Microsoft was in awareness. Somehow, her voice from a Microsoft project got weaseled into being Olivia in Revoicer, which I actually had heard about Revoicer a while ago. But yeah, so they are just unabashedly, without shame. Let's continue. Jennifer Hale and David Hayter say AI voice acting is no substitute for humans. Published June 21st, 2023 by Joey Brown. In an interview with Game Rant, Synapse actors Jennifer Hale and David Hayter discussed AI voice acting and the value of human performers. AI has been a controversial subject in the past year due to the explosive growth of technologies like image-generating tools such as Midjourney and AI language models like ChatGPT that, although undoubtedly useful and fun, are also disruptive forces in a number of industries. There is an ongoing debate about the ethics surrounding these AI tools regarding how they're trained on images, voices, and writings without the creator's consent. And although AI voice acting might be a boom to indie game developers unable to afford voice actors, it's important to address these concerns as the technology finds its place in the industry. Game Rant recently interviewed iconic voice actors Jennifer Hale and David Hayter ahead of the launch of the upcoming PSVR 2 exclusive, Synapse, in which they are both lending their talents, and they each had some insights regarding AI's role in their profession. They spoke about whether or not they believe AI will be able to replace human performers, as well as the legal rights that actors have regarding the use of their voices. A related article is former BioWare writer says AI results in soulless dialogue. Might be good to check out. Jennifer Hale says actors must be compensated or it's theft. Most people by now have probably heard or seen shockingly accurate AI renditions of prominent figures like Joe Rogan or Donald Trump in various spoofs online. And this is understandably concerning to people whose careers are rooted in their voices. Jennifer Hale reflected on this, stressing that industry professionals shouldn't give in to fear, but rather they should take steps to protect themselves and to know their legal rights. The fact is, if I took your face, if I grabbed Joey's image and used it to promote my company, then it wouldn't be long before I got some sort of legal action thrown my way for giving you absolutely nothing for stealing your image. And the same is true for our voices. Many people have awakened to this fact and are absolutely present to it, and I really appreciate that. We have rights, and if you're going to use someone's voice, they need to be compensated for that. You don't get to steal people's voices, because that's what it's doing. It's theft. Hale advises that voice actors take advantage of the resources that the National Association of Voice Actors, NAVA, provides to protect their vocal likeness from misuse. And NAVA also has resources that can help facilitate contracts for actors who may wish to license out their voices for use by AI tools. Thanks to resources like this, it's possible for a balance to be struck so that actors and AI tools can coexist in a way that's mutually beneficial. But it's also very clear that AI's ultimate role in the industry is inherently limited due to one factor: the human soul. Jennifer Hale and David Hayter don't think AI can truly replace human voice actors. Despite legal rights and theft being a serious concern, both Jennifer Hale and David Hayter are unbothered by the idea of being replaced outright. They recognize that although AI is superficially impressive, there are certain human qualities that make it impossible to truly replicate their performances. Metal Gear Solid voice actor David Hayter says that the soul behind the voice simply can't be emulated by AI. The computer's amazing at replicating the voice, but what it is not good at doing is replicating the soul of the person. If you listen to deepfakes of Joe Biden or Trump, it sounds like them tonally, but it also sounds like a computer. You're never going to get the thousands of subtle emotional cues that Jennifer Hale puts into each line via computer. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. I think AI is a fun tool that people will explore and find out the limitations of, and it'll find its place within our community. But I don't think it's going to be writing our scripts, and I don't think it's going to be performing our performances. On the other hand, Hayter also notes that AI technology will find its place in the industry. One example is how AI voice acting was used for Senua's saga Hellblade 2 as a vocal placeholder during development to figure out timing and phrasing before real actors are brought in for the final product. It's also been used to bring AI-voiced dialogue to older games, like The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, which might be the only way players will hear that content vocalized, short of a true remake. So I basically just wanted to use this honestly for the clout or whatever of Jennifer Hale and David Hayter. They are so well known in the voiceover industry, and so to quote their opinions just kind of to me validates my fears and what I said, to say like, look, like these are the ones that made it. Like when I say what I dream of, it's to be Jennifer Hale, like not her specifically. I do enjoy my voice, but to have that career, right? So I really just wanted to kind of use this to illustrate that it's not just me being jaded or bitter, because, ooh, I didn't make it. These actors have made it, and they still see an issue. And I know, David is a little bit more confident that it won't be, replaceable. But as we're seeing with additional articles that we're going to get to, and even with, with Michelle, they are finding ways, and they're finding loopholes. And the technology is going to advance in a way that what now we can say, oh, well, you can definitely hear, human versus AI, cloning. That's going to not be a thing anymore pretty soon. I would say within 5 years, probably sooner than that. But, things do go through processes and stuff. But essentially, it does boil down to the argument isn't necessarily saying that you cannot use AI, voice cloning, synthetic voice cloning. It's that you need to get consent from the person whose voice you're using originally to make that AI synthetic voice clone, and then to compensate them. So, one, you can't take, let's use Jennifer Hale, and make her voice a very explicit adult scene that she doesn't want to do. So you need her consent that, hey, I'm going to use it for this. And then you also need to compensate her for that. So again, it probably would be a fraction. Okay, fine, you're not actually using her studio time. So maybe you would just remove the studio time and just pay the usage fee because like that, you didn't sell, she wasn't directed, that kind of stuff. I could see that kind of agreement happening. So like that, instead of paying for her to go in and voice your video game, you're just paying again the usage rights for the medium of that broadcast. That's actually non-broadcast, but I can kind of see that. But again, you need the consent. You can't just take someone's likeness and voice, That's why deepfakes and stuff are so dangerous. And I think people do realize that, especially when you bring up politicians. But like that, there's revenge and, issues like that, where people can put likenesses of people on these adult sites, and whether or not it is like actually them, as in like generated to look like them, they could still claim that it's that person, and that person can lose their career, that they can lose their job, you know? And that's just, it's this whole situation. It's all connected into your likeness is your own property. You know what I mean? Like, you can call it a product, you can call it a brand, whatever you want to call it. It's me. You can't take me, you know, and to do you, you know, like, it's so weird that this is something that needs to be even pointed out. I apologize if you found this to learn more and it sounds like I'm being rude to you. I don't mean that way, because I understand, to a layman, you know, outside of the entertainment industry, you're just seeing the fun TikTok videos, the usefulness of ChatGPT for like children, because it wasn't that what it was originally created for, was to help people with homework. Although, are they now cheating on their homework? I don't really know. I've never actually used ChatGPT, but I understand at first, you know, that was what it was used for. And I know I spoke at length in other previous videos about, you know, the AI art, you know, photoshopping manipulation, even the writing manipulation. There are uses where it's innocent, you know, the user is not intending any ill will, is not making any money off of it. And unfortunately, that kind of gets swept up into this as well. And there is an article that goes over that, and we will get to that. So I'm going to cut this for now and move on. Metal Gear Solid voice actor Paul Eiding speaks out on fans and AI using his voice work without permission. Doing so is a violation of my legal rights and a real slap in the face. Posted July 11th, 2023 by Christina Alexander. Paul Eiding, the voice actor behind Colonel Campbell in the Metal Gear Solid series, has spoken out about the use of his voice for AI projects without his permission. Eiding tweeted yesterday urging content creators not to use his voice of Colonel Campbell and other characters from Transformers, Fallout, and other work involving him in an illegal manner. If you do not have written permission to use my voice, you do not have permission to use my voice, including AI use. Doing so is a violation of my legal rights and a real slap in the face. Thanks in advance for not doing this. Eiding's anger over the AI use of his voice comes on the heels of Erica Lindbeck, who voices Futaba Sakura in Persona 5, Rist in God of War Ragnarok, and Blaze the Cat in the Sonic the Hedgehog series, speaking out on the same issue. According to The Gamer, Lindbeck asks fans on Twitter to report AI videos that use her voiceover work without her permission, including an AI-generated cover of Welcome to the Internet by Bo Burnham, which was sung by Futaba. The AI creator then accused Lindbeck of inciting a harassment campaign against them over the video, which they deemed a dumb but harmless Futaba AI cover. The dispute forced the voice actress to delete her Twitter account without a word on if or when she'll be back on the platform. Twitter has since suspended the AI creator from the platform for violating its media policy. The impact of AI is an increasingly hot topic within the industry. In May, EI boss Andrew Wilson said the games industry would probably be one of the greatest beneficiaries of AI. He described AI as an augment to EA's teams, as well as a way to allow players to create content within EA's worlds. For more on the subject of AI, IGN recently held an AI week of articles and video content all about the nascent technology. So I very specifically wanted to bring up Paul Eiding, and I believe it's Eiding. Is it Eiding? I think it's Eiding, because I was speaking very specifically about Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. But this is a perfect example. You know, do not use his voice without permission. Well, that game, the remake, is using the original audio for that remake. And I don't believe that they are paying the actors. I've not yet heard any of the actors speak up about that. And that's a little different because that's not cloning, but that goes into what I was discussing about the contracts and how you have to carefully read contracts, right? So I have a video, it's called In Perpetuity. So I will link it if you want to hear more about that. But basically, it's kind of very similar where they can use that voice. If you sign the contract that says In Perpetuity and you sign that or whatever, they can use that voice work for this other project without paying, without even letting you know. That's why there was one of the kind kind of clickbait articles was saying that it wasn't using the same voice actors, like they weren't returning. Well, yeah, they're not officially returning. They aren't going back into the studio because it's using all of the same dialogue from previous. So again, I will not get into that. If you do want me to hear more about that, go watch that video. But it's very similar that if you sign something with an AI clause in your contract, same thing can happen, only the technology side works a little bit differently because it can take your previous audio and it can help, it can synthesize it to do new work and new words. So same concept, different back-end technology. In other words, it's taking your voice and you're not getting paid for it. How lovely! But anyway, this next article is actually the catalyst for this. You can tell on some of these that they were back from June. I've been thinking about making this video for a long time, I promise you. This one finally came out. It actually popped up on my LinkedIn, and that's when you know it's getting serious if it's on your LinkedIn. So I was like, you know what? Now or never. People are talking about it. It's only getting worse. Let's go ahead. So let's read this, and I will give you my thoughts. Video game voice actors say soul of the industry is on trial with unregulated AI. Published August 14th, 2023 by Sarah Parvini. When Eric Pesoja voiced a Belgian geneticist in a Call of Duty game nearly 10 years ago, he didn't expect that his face would also pop up in an entirely different character. But following the game's release in 2014, a friend told Pesoja that his son had shot someone who looked just like him in the player-versus-player version of the game. The friend sent over a screenshot of a buffed, armored Pesoja, but with shorter hair. "I remember feeling violated," said Pesoja, a Los Angeles resident who has also worked on games including Diablo 4 and Red Dead Redemption 2. To Pesoja, the experience highlights what's at stake as actors union SAG-AFTRA strikes and calls for better protections around the use of artificial intelligence, among other demands. Protections for game voice actors fall under a separate SAG-AFTRA contract for interactive work. Striking actors can still do voice work for games, but that contract, negotiated in 2017, did not include AI. And many voice actors say that they are looking at the outcome of the current strike, which began last month, as a bellwether for their own future. Society can't stop AI technology from advancing, actors said, but workers can secure contracts that would require their consent to reproduce their voice or likeness and compensate them when that does happen. A new interactive contract represents about 2,500 performers is being negotiated, members of the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee said. The interactive media agreement covers off-camera voiceover performers, on-camera, motion capture and stunt performers, stunt coordinators, singers, dancers, puppeteers, and background performers, according to SAG-AFTRA. Although the technology to reuse a likeness or modify a voice has existed for years, actors say that AI ups the ante because it can scrap more information more efficiently and potentially turn it into a plausible clone of an actor, combine actors' work, or pass as a new ersatz artist. I don't know what that means. I'll put that here. The debate over the use of AI comes as nearly half of Americans, 45%, are concerned about the effect artificial intelligence will have on their own line of work, compared to 29% who are not concerned, according to an August poll for The Times, conducted by Legger, a Canadian-based polling firm with experience in U.S. surveys. Voice actors, in gaming and beyond, need to protect themselves from AI, Pesoja said, because repurposing his likeness in Call of Duty was completely unethical, completely immoral, and yet completely within the bounds of my contract. A performer's product, their face, voice, and movement, should be digitally watermarked and digitally tracked, he said, so actors can be fairly compensated when that product is used. It needs to start yesterday, he said, because of what happened to me. Activision Blizzard, the Santa Monica-based parent company of Call of Duty publisher Activision, declined to comment. A spokesperson for Electronic Arts, the Redwood City-based gaming company, whose titles include Apex Legends and It Takes Two, also declined to comment. Zeke Alton, a voice actor and member of the SAG-AFTRA Interactive Contract Negotiation Committee, said that actors and writers aren't asking for an end to AI technology. Instead, he said, they want a baseline agreement that if their work is used, a company will ask for consent and pay for that use, as well as provide transparency around the use of data for training or machine learning. If we don't put at least hard cases around the edges to ensure that a career remains, the technology will catch up and surpass us, he said. AI-generated voices will take over voicing non-player characters if unregulated, he said. The problem, Alton said, is that type of work is where most actors cut their teeth and learn how to be a lead voice actor. Those experience-building jobs will be gone because they'll be done by the algorithm, said Alton. He added that even if the union does secure AI protections, the non-union world is open. A growing segment of the video game industry, particularly quality assurance testers, is pushing to unionize. You see it across social media all the time, that the video game companies are using their non-union characters to feed machine learning algorithms that will then be able to do the characters without actually hiring humans, said Alton. In the very near future, that may mean that your very first job is your last job. Voice actors have recently noted audio from video games being stripped and modified and placed on websites to either be put into other games or to perform lines that the actor wouldn't say. This is dangerous on multiple levels, said Tim Friedlander, the president and founder of the National Association of Voice Actors. There is one voice actor that we're working with who has found a piece of audio from a game she did years ago in a new mobile game, and it's a direct lift, or it's a clone of her voice. Last month, voice actors spoke out against game mods in which players or fans of a game alter content in the popular role-playing game Skyrim, which used AI-generated voices based on actors' performances, cloning them for pornographic purposes. Julia Bianco-Schöffling, Chief Operating Officer and Casting Director at the Halp Network, which connects clients with on-screen and off-screen talent, said that AI is a powerful tool as long as it doesn't replace human performance. Her goal is to figure out how to compensate talent fairly as AI progresses. Unions, she added, are tasked with the difficult job of putting guardrails on something that has yet to be regulated. None of the people working on the art wanted to see the art gone, she said. But I think there's an inevitability to the tools, because they do increase capability so significantly. Many voice actors believe that unchecked AI use could pose an existential threat to not only their careers, but the acting industry as a whole. Because the depth of narratives varies across game genres, the amount of work that goes into voicing a lengthy role-playing title may differ from the time spent recording lines for a shooting game, said voice actor Grace Rolek. Line service games, which are constantly updated and expanded, regularly add new content, said Rolek. She often goes into the studio for short sessions. That space in particular is one where she sees the potential for greater AI use. If a character's line is slightly tweaked, Rolek said, it's possible that they could run the original voice through an AI system and get a similar performance with the new dialogue. Voice actors could lose the opportunity to go back into the studio and get paid for that type of work, unless they sign licensing agreements that would pay them for continued use of their voice, she said. I think that having some sort of consistent standard across the industry is really important, especially for something like AI that is only going to get better, said Rolek. It's not quite there yet to be like, oh, can you have a breath in between words? Or, oh, can you put the stress on this word instead of that word? But I do feel like that's only a matter of time. Brock Powell said that their voice has been the target of generative AI. In addition to spoken dialogue, the actor provides creature voices like realistic animals, monster, and zombie sounds. Friends and fans have contacted Powell, offering congratulations on a role in a game, but Powell was confident that they had not worked on those titles. Powell said the voice work was recognizable because they create a guttural double roar sound that is rather hard to replicate. Powell considers it a sonic signature and believes that source material they provided both in auditions and in sessions was likely being used to create new performances without the actor's permission or compensation. I'm not just talking about they can lift and edit and then pitch it down, said Powell, who has worked on such titles as Minecraft Legends and Genshin Impact. I'm talking about sounds are elongated or manipulated in a way that is not performed initially. Voice actors who create a library of specialty sounds are especially vulnerable, Powell added, because it can be impossible to prove that a sound like a roaring monster was voiced by a specific actor. The soul of the industry is on trial here, Powell said. Are we interested in making stuff to tell great stories and move people? Are we interested in just making content and keeping people distracted? So first, it's really kind of scary, but I've also heard in other articles that background characters, for face cameras for extras in movies and stuff like that, they have already, like, they're being scanned so that they can actually be used CG in other movies and television shows and stuff like that without their consent. Like, they were aware they were getting screened, but again, when you don't look at the fine print, it's just like, oh, okay, this is part of the process. And especially like that, like if it's for any kind of fantasy thing, you can assume, well, they have to scan it for the effects, you know, but no, that they can use your likeness and just put you in the background and fill out their space without actually hiring you. And with extras, they already don't really get much money. They get like $80 or $70 a day. This is in the state of Georgia, I believe it is. It's like, yeah, like $75 stipend for like at least an 8-hour day. Usually you have to be there for like 12 hours. Obviously, if you have a speaking role, you get paid more than just being a background character. That's why a lot of these scenes, you'll just see them awkwardly like smile at somebody. So like the waitress will just be like, and she won't actually say anything, because if she actually said hello, she'd have to be paid more. So I think everyone knows that little behind the scenes tidbit, but if you didn't, now you know. And now they're trying to do another step. And it's just like, come on, this movie, this TV show, like it all makes millions. You can't pay these people for their likeness. I can understand, especially during like COVID and stuff, I could sort of understand like, hey, we don't actually want 200 people on set, but we need the set to look like there's 200 people here. But then again, you know, fine, scan my body and pay me for the time that it would take, or the usage, you know, like come up with another sort of agreement that, again, pays for your likeness. Like, that's so creepy. And then I wanted to say that Zeke, yeah, his name's Zeke. This is what I was saying before, that your very first job might be your last. Exactly. You always you have to climb the ladder in whatever field you're in. I've been trying to just get one-liners in cartoons, you know, be the extra. I had a few cool auditions sent out, but, you know, one audition, you know, 1,500 people, whatever, you know, audition, and only one person gets to book. So, you know, the odds are never in your favor. And that's just how it works. And that's totally fine like that. That's how it's always been. But then to have this added on, it's just that extra, why is it so hard? And why are people trying to take away creativity and joy and imagination, storytelling? Like, it's just, it's horrible to remove the human out of these, you know, human arts. But this article does also go into the importance of unions. And I understand there are people who aren't like the management or whatever that are against unions. And I was even told several years ago that being non-union is not necessarily better, but it's easier or more simplified for individual artists who are trying to grow. So once you get to the Jennifer Hale level, being in a union, yeah, that's great, because you've established your name, you have that reputation, you have that network, so you can book through that, because it's a lot of who you know. And it's not just about talent. It really is about schmoozing. So non-union, there are smaller gigs out there, so it's easier to book, because if they're more niche, then you can find them. It's not going out because the budget's not large enough. So it's not getting the, 500 auditions. It's only getting the 50 auditions because it's local or whatever. And so you have more possibility of booking. Also, a lot of work that is non-broadcast, like e-learning and stuff, is not union. At least in terms of, from what I know, maybe those can also be union. I have never seen a whiteboard animation or an e-learning project that said it was union. Some non-union gigs will, the clients will say, hey, we're going by union rates, which is great, but they don't look for union talent. Again, I could be maybe not the most informative on that. Editor Carrie will, I was going to call myself Kaylee. I don't even know. That's not my name. How do you get your own name wrong? Anyway, this next article I really wanted to read because you can kind of see it from not the other perspective, but the middleman. So Voquent does multilingual voiceovers and translations and everything like that. I've had the opportunity to work with them a few times. And so they sent out to all of those who they work with a statement on their official stance. And I remember they really were one of the first, as you'll hear in this article. They They really were one of the first to ever say that they would protect talent from AI clause. So let's go ahead and read it, and then I'll talk about it after. AI voice cloning, Voquent's official stance, August 8th, 2023, by Miles Ciccone? I apologize if I mispronounced that. As CEO and co-founder of Voquent, I firmly believe in upholding our company's values and principles. We always strive to promote responsible business practices and engage in essential debates, such as the implications of AI in voiceover. Over the years, we have taken significant steps to protect voice actors and address their concerns about AI utilization. However, with the rise of ChatGPT and the growing interest in AI voiceovers and voice cloning, it is necessary to formalize our position on this matter. Voquent will not support, accept, or participate in any project or job requests involving the creation or use of AI voice models, regardless of their intended purpose. Here's my reasoning behind this decision. The impact of the AI voices. The release of ChatGPT in November 2022 captivated the world. The development of AI has accelerated consumer-level utilization and algorithmic plagiarism on an unprecedented scale. Thousands of startups claim AI will replace swaths of traditional human services. These companies seek to capitalize on the hype. AI voiceover and voice cloning tech are part of this movement. AI voice clones are built on training models. The more audio uploaded, the more realistic and indistinguishable the voice clones sound. Waiting for AI voices to advance before dealing with the objective threat that accompanies this technology simply proliferates the risks. Dealing with this problem sooner rather than later is crucial. Now, to be clear, AI voiceovers and synthetic speech still do not offer a professionally competitive alternative to a human custom-recorded voiceover. We are, however, very concerned about the accessibility of voice clone building apps being offered as cheap and readily accessible toys to consumers on a wholly unregulated basis. Unknowable damage of unregulated tech. Our discomfort revolves around the same principles as why certain types of products or tools are only purchasable with a license. Music is a prime example. Napster was the first music file sharing platform to prove that as many as 80 million people were willing to share or even steal music with no sense of guilt, purely because the platform existed and everyone was doing it. Individual consumers are not legally obligated to adopt or practice moral principles. This consideration is why I do not believe AI voice cloning tools should be accessible at a consumer level. Contrary to the statements made by other notable providers and platforms in the voiceover industry, we disagree that unconstrained and unregulated mass use of AI voice clones is a certainty. Voice cloning represents a severe erosion of fundamental human rights, which is unacceptable collateral damage in pursuing disruptive software development, identity theft, and fraud through AI voices. This technology represents a dangerous threat to everyone's privacy, security, and well-being, especially if you're in the public eye. Example, a content creator, actor, or politician. Any consumer seeking to create a voice clone can easily use audiobooks, YouTube videos, or interview archives to build a powerful AI voice clone for any desired purpose. A recent headline example was Martin Lewis, who hosts a popular money-saving TV series in the UK. Beware frightening new deepfake Martin Lewis video scam promoting a fake Elon Musk investment. It's not real. Designed for deception. Effective communication is based on two fundamental principles: how a message is conveyed, and who is listening to or consuming the message. Our brains are instinctively preconditioned to tune out what isn't human. Artificial voices are detectable within seconds on mainstream mediums, such as streaming, TV, video games, internet portals, or radio. They aren't fit for purpose in long-form, high-quality content. However, a well-modeled AI voice clone over a poor-quality audio device, such as a phone, can take much longer to detect, and the cognitive capability of the listener also plays an important role. For instance, it would be effortless to let an AI voice clone have an entire conversation with a young child or elderly relative without necessarily realizing they are speaking with a clone. Therefore, the duration before detection, as in the number of seconds before the average listener realizes something is wrong, becomes the most critical metric for a company seeking to sell AI voice clones and generative voiceovers. Their challenge is to try to minimize telltale signs that can extend the duration for as long as possible. Stilted or unnatural delivery, unusual intonations, lack of variation in pitch, repetitive accentuations, emotional tone that doesn't match the content, occasional glitches. Delivery and authenticity are essential. And as soon as a listener suspects that they are listening to an AI voice, their trust in the speaker evaporates, and the perceived value of the message or content plummets. This is why, for mainstream audience consumption, where a voiceover typically extends beyond 15 seconds, AI voice clones cannot compete with a professionally viable alternative to a customized or live human voice. Prioritizing safety. Last year, Voquent became the first significant voiceover provider to clarify its terms of use, alleviating the voice actors' fears regarding their audio demos, auditions, or material being used to train AI or create synthetic voices. Our terms explicitly state that we will only use audio for generative AI models with the complete clarity and consent of all parties involved. 2.1.4 We undertake that we shall not use any content of your user portfolio or any recording other than for the purposes of providing the services or as agreed with the actor as appropriate, and in particular shall not make or permit any use of an actor's voiceover recordings in connection with the formation of any synthetic voice, aka AI voice, text-to-speech voice, production, unless expressly agreed with the actor in writing and recorded specifically for that purpose. But the issues surrounding the enablement of AI voice cloning are not isolated to performing talents. We believe that AI identity cloning of any kind, visual or vocal, represents an equal threat to the lives and rights of ordinary people. Current voice cloning technology represents one of the most powerful new tools for supporting deepfake impersonation, fake, harmful media built with deep learning AI, and misuse that has ever existed. Scammers, phishers, hackers, and cybercriminals currently enjoy unconstrained access to and use of these tools, and this requires a level of proactive legislation that governments are not accustomed to. Imagine your voice being used to trick your family to transfer you emergency funds in a scam. Consider the potential for your voice being used to trick your children's teachers in a school. The possibilities for exploitation are chilling, especially as voice cloning becomes more advanced. A bad apple. Everyone knows that big tech companies are willing to sacrifice the privacy and security of the broader public for profit, as long as they can operate in a legally defensible gray area. Unfortunately, the concept of ethics and accountability in large corporations usually represent little more than a PR issue and an unwelcome distraction. For instance, the White House had all the big tech companies sign an agreement ensuring safe, secure, and trustworthy AI. There was one notable omission: Apple. Apple has spent years claiming to be a champion of user privacy, which makes its actions particularly puzzling. Now, Apple appears to be preparing self-voice cloning as a consumer function on iPhones and have been showcasing the functionality on their forthcoming iOS 17 release, as reported here and here. The article has links. Tech companies that offer realistic-sounding, off-the-shelf TTS offerings have productized the identities of professional voice actors. Unsurprisingly, the volume and frequency of legal disputes are increasing. Greg Marston represents the latest professional voice actor to fall foul to big tech reselling a clone of his voice. There was a widespread outcry before Apple backtracked on their intended AI for audiobooks option. This shows that people can force change if we are vigilant and ready to stand up. The need for consent. It is naive and irresponsible to leave this form of technology purely to self-regulation. We strongly believe that any company or person that seeks to use any form of vocal recording of a human being, modified, adapted, edited, or otherwise, must have explicit consent from that individual to use an AI clone of their voice. In particular, that consent should be for the exact words used and the mediums from which the audio will be transmitted, broadcast, delivered, or consumed. If the primary purpose of the use is to endorse, advocate, or encourage sales for commercial gain, that license should be explicit. Explicit about the mediums, territory, intended targeted audience or recipient, and the duration the recording can be used. Any company or individual that uses a voice clone without permission of the original individual from which the clone was based is performing a level of identity theft and committing an act of fraud. Private companies seeking to sell off-the-shelf TTS realistic-sounding voice clones should be subject to local non-compliance penalties against the same audit standards as finance and insurance companies. Fraud is and always has been a criminal act. Therefore, individuals that use voice clones to commit fraud, whether for their personal use or on behalf of a group or organization, must always be traceable and accountable at an individual and personally liable level. Technology uses are outpacing data privacy laws. Governments are reactive entities, prioritizing initiatives linked to voter sentiment. For this reason, updating data privacy or copyright laws to keep up with aggressive, privately funded technology developments is also mainly viewed as a PR consideration for incumbent lawmakers. In many cases, the act of using an AI voice clone is arguably breaking multiple existing laws. Non-consensual depictions and endorsements, false representation and impersonation, plagiarism and unlicensed use of creative copyrights, fraud, abuse, and identity theft, infringements on human rights. Government regulation will eventually seek to control AI voice cloning, and tech companies wanting to sell AI know this, so they seek to exploit the open market as widely and quickly as possible before introducing these controls. Conclusion. Amidst the safety concerns, it is easy to forget that voice cloning can offer genuine humanitarian benefits. People born with or affected by medical conditions, such as ALS, benefit massively from TTS and synthetic voiceover. It's always worth championing the possible potential that any technology can have for specialized usage. Still, the sad reality is that if we keep supporting this work, we're accelerating the power and accessibility of tools subject to widespread misuse. At Voquent, we are committed to responsible business practices and protecting the rights and safety of voice actors and the public. The potential benefits of voice cloning must be clear of the risks. For the foreseeable future, until we see explicit, recognizable intervention and regulation that will tightly control the uses and enablement of AI voice clones, we are no longer comfortable or willing to facilitate any projects that will support generative synthetic speech, even if it's for good causes. From a human rights standpoint, there needs to be much greater awareness of the misuse of AI voice clones, and the criminal implications of their current or potential abuse can only be addressed by governments. The sooner, the better. We hope that other individuals and companies in and outside our industry will give equal interest and consideration to the risks and dangers of unregulated and non-consensual formation and use of voice clones. The following post was received while I was editing this video. It's from the NAVA Members Group Facebook page. It was published about 10 p.m. Eastern Time, August 15th, 2023. Attention all SAG-AFTRA PCAP performers. At the behest of the Interactive Committee, SAG-AFTRA just released this statement. A statement about performance capture and interactive media agreement performance capture is SAG-AFTRA covered work. Performers in the agreement are defined as persons who speak, act, sing, or in any other manner perform, whether on or off camera. Members should report to the union any companies who refuse to properly cover this work on union games via the link at the bottom. And for the purposes of this video, I will include the link in the description. Video games are a multi-billion-dollar industry, and those who bring them to life by performing captured performances deserve protections, just like those who work on any other form of entertainment media. Performance capture, in which a computer records an actor's movements, is commonly used to instill game characters with realistic motion and emotions. It is highly skilled performance work, and members need the coverage of our interactive media agreement. This contract covers anything recorded during the course of production of an interactive project. Without a union contract, you have no protections against AI and machine learning abuse, which are subjects that employers are required to negotiate over with the union. Without protections, once your data is captured in a performance capture session, your next job could potentially be your last.
So yeah, that whole article, I was like, I have to just read this because it's the deep dive I wanted to do. And I am so sorry that I cannot pronounce, or I'm not sure how to pronounce Miles's last name. I've not had the pleasure of speaking with him directly, so I apologize. I did not mean to mispronounce his name, but no, what he said was fantastic, and I really can't add much to it other than, again, kind of color commentary. But as he pointed out, as I was speaking at the beginning of this video, there are some good reasons to provide people with a synthetic voice. I've said in another video of mine that those who lose their voice, as again, Miles also pointed out, those who have like a tracheotomy or whatever, and they lose their voice, maybe through cancer, sometimes they know
beforehand. They are diagnosed with the illness and they know that this is a possibility. I think it is a beautiful thing to be able to then, you can book a studio. You don't have to be professional to book, a recording studio and just record hours of you talking. So that it can be used so that when you need to use, the technology, you can actually, instead of just a mechanical sounding voice or someone else's voice, choose from these 5 people, it can be literally you and you can get your voice back. And I think that is so beautiful and that is so powerful. And I had the opportunity, I was never able to actually do it, but there was a volunteer service going around that allowed you to do that you would record and basically sign your rights away to be used in that very specific technology. Now I am thankful that I didn't do it. At the time, I was really feeling guilty that I didn't do it because not to kind of, get too personal, but I am religious. And so I feel like it was sort of my duty to give back my God-given talents to others in that way. And, but I didn't, as I said, it was like 3-hour sessions for like 10 sessions or something like that. Like it was a lot of time. And then also volunteer time because you're not getting paid for that. So it's not only that like, oh, I'm not getting paid. It's taking the time away from when I could be using that work to get paid, if that makes sense, like even just like, let's say I was working at at Walmart or whatever, right? If I have to give 30 hours of my time away to record, then I basically don't work for a week and I don't get paid for that week. You know what I mean? So if you look at it that way, like the volunteering, it wasn't so much about, I'm not getting paid for this. It's more like I'm losing time that I can give to paid clients. Ultimately, that is why I didn't do it. But now that there are, people who can just straight up steal it, they can hack anything, they can get the voices. And even if, that one organization had, a great intent and they were using it exactly as how we agreed upon they use it, only for these individuals who have this illness. If their security isn't level or whatever, they can steal that voice, then they can sell it. You saw what happened with Microsoft and Revoicer in that other one. Did Microsoft sell Michelle's voice, or did it get hacked and was taken from them? Did someone within the company do some underhanded stuff? Technically, I guess maybe they could have just listened to the stuff that Microsoft put out that Michelle was aware of from that project, and they could have just recorded that and taken it. So it's possible that it wasn't any kind of, security issue. But again, that issue still remains. That piracy, that theft, the fraud, these are very real crimes. These are very real crimes. And they need to be addressed. And I know a while ago, everyone was really upset that all those old people up in Congress and the Senate and stuff trying to make regulations about internet and that kind of stuff. And I know that was all really quite bad because they didn't understand how everything works. And so some of the stuff that they were going to pass through, and for the life of me, I can't remember the exact issue that it was now, but I know, you know what I'm talking about, right? They were trying to pass something that was just not, it wouldn't have solved the issue. This is kind of with that a little bit, kind of like, at least in America, the Constitution there was no computer back in the day. I did the history of voiceover, the soundophone and stuff like that. That came out in 18 something. So it wasn't relevant, and the founding fathers couldn't have known that it would be relevant ever. I don't know of any other, governments and rulers and regulations and stuff, but I assume, Europe, Africa, China, Japan, name the place. I don't think that they also had those things written in. Is it possible maybe you're somewhere in your country, the rules and regulations and the government ordinances are updated every 5 years, and so you kept up with it? I mean, yeah, anything's possible. Like I said, I don't know. So you tell me. But I'm going to say that one country that did it is probably an outlier. So These issues were not even a thought of possibility before, and now they only get updated when rich companies are going to get hurt. And so Hollywood and all those big name companies, Microsoft, Apple, Google, they can get regulations passed to protect them because they have the money to do so. That's why Disney's always been in the news and stuff for things too. They're way more political than I think the average person really considers in a normal perspective. And when you sit there and think about it, yeah, it makes sense, but you don't really think in your daily life that these companies are what's behind all of these specific regulations. And they'll skirt in what they want before it gets popularized by that mainstream media and such. That really happened in the 80s and the 90s. I am listening. I love Dark History with Bailey Sarian and The Y-Files with Andrew Gentile. He always just says his name's AJ, I think, so, which is weird because his last name's G. Anyway, I've been learning through these other consumable, I'm an audiophile. You can really see how these rich people who made these, that you don't even realize that take Walmart from my earlier example, that was a person. Those were actually two people who created that big ass boom, right? But when you think about it, you just think about, oh, that's Walmart. You don't think about, hey, there was someone who made that and then who put in regulations and did stuff against mom and pop and all that kind of stuff, right? Not actually mom and pop, but mom and pop shops. I'm realizing I'm not ending my sentences. My point is that we need to speak up for everyone in pretty much every industry. This is affecting creatives more than the average person, I would venture a guess, because writers, artists and musicians and voice actors, usually it's more of the creative side of things. I still feel that data entry and that kind of thing can also have or be affected, but I think it's from parallel tools and technologies. So as processes are automated, but that it's still, the point still stands. If something is affecting your business, then spread awareness so that we can protect each other, right? Why can't we have each other's best interests in heart? And I know that might be naive because every man for himself, you are ruled by the almighty dollar. But at the end of the day, can you really sit with yourself and just inspect your life and your decisions and what you supported and feel okay with the idea that people are losing their livelihoods, that people are losing their dreams, that, children go hungry at night? I know I'm playing it up a little, but I'm really not exaggerating, The strike has made people virtually homeless. I don't know that anyone is actually homeless from this. I could be wrong. Definitely, I know in California, it's very expensive to live out there, so maybe. But I have heard of professionals having to sell their home because they can't afford the mortgage anymore. So they downsized, so hopefully they literally have shelter. But they also literally lost their home. It's not about vanity or pride, and it's not about greed. These people in the strike are fighting for respect and to be paid what is owed and what they should be paid. And there are other professionals who have spent years and thousands of dollars studying and honing their art and their skill and their talent and knowledge, and to then ignore that because they are expendable just so that a few can stay at the 1%, the top tier, the rich get richer, and the companies can penny pinch, the little peons down below and still be raking in millions. It's just wrong. And I'm not even coming at it from a political side, democracy, communism, socialism. I'm not even talking about any of that. It's just the broad, high-level scope, right? Like, who really can sit there and support that? You know? So anyway, I hope that this was informative or in some way entertaining-ish. Like, obviously, it's kind of disappointing and a little bit scary, but I do hope to do more commentary, reviews and giving my personal opinion into things and topics. I do want to do a little bit more deep dives, but I am in a transitional period in my life. Aren't I always in a transitional period? I am doing way too much all the time, but I love creating content, so I just wanted to get this out there and maybe, maybe inform somebody or at least help in my little way. So remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and whatever you are struggling with today will pass. Until next time, stay crazy!